Hey guys, welcome to the Fingerstyle lesson series. In this first video, we're just going to briefly discuss some core fundamental technique concepts that you're going to want to be aware of moving forward, progressing through the videos or whatever you happen to be working on, or even if you've been playing for a long time and you haven't considered this in the past. All of these things I think are going to boil down to just awareness of how you're managing physical movement. And what I mean by that is I see it with my students all the time where they will just say that they can't do something because their hands are not doing it, but they're not really trying to figure out another way to reach that goal. So they're just kind of letting their brain and body take over however it happens to do it, and then that's all they're capable of. And I always call BS on that and say, well, let's make this adjustment, let's try it this way. So always think about that. How aware are you when you're playing? That's huge with fingerstyle, because I mean, with a pick you have to think about it as well, but now we're dealing with 4 picks. That's excluding the pinky there, but you're more intimate with the guitar because you're touching it, and that can feel comfortable, but it is not intuitive how we're supposed to move on the strings. So just keep on thinking about that idea, awareness. How am I trying to execute each particular movement? Okay, so I'm going to discuss 4 concepts related to fingerstyle playing in the right hand. I'm not doing this in any particular order, but I will say the first one is probably the one that tortures most guitarists, and that is tension. There is an optimal amount of tension that we need for playing the guitar, whether we're talking about the left hand or the right hand for that matter. So there is necessary tension, but everybody's tendency is to overdo that. And there could be 100 different examples about how tension can get into our fingers, arms, shoulder, neck, back. I mean, it can spread pretty quickly, and there's a lot of reasons why that can happen. But I'll just talk about a couple of things to consider in the right hand with fingerstyle playing. So one is going to be trying to get the pinky out of the way because you think it's going to hit a string or something. You see a lot of people sticking these fingers out because they don't know what to do with them, and they don't know how to control them. And do your best to be aware of what is going on with those fingers from the get-go, even though if it feels difficult to manage, because it holds you back from being able to understand movement of the fingers that you're trying to use. You're kind of having like a tug of war with the hand where you got these fingers pulling out this way, and then you're trying to follow through with these fingers on the strings. Just one example, but it's a very common one when people are starting out. And then another one is to put a lot of weight with the arm and into the thumb here, and to grab the string with the thumb, which we don't want. You just want to relax and just place the thumb. That's a big joint right there, and the thumb is super strong, and it really doesn't need much effort to get through the string and to get a sound. And I find a lot of people when they're starting out are grabbing the string, in particular if they're playing the thumb and another finger simultaneously, start to kind of torque and twist on it and grab the string. So just a couple things to be aware of, but just tension in general, right? Trying to relax, remember to breathe. That's pretty huge, okay? And that will, I guess, help you slide into heightened awareness of being able to control more specific things. The second one is just general hand position. If I have my thumb on string 4, I have my index on string 3, my middle finger on string 2, and my ring finger on string 1 here. My wrist is pretty straight. If I were sitting in a classical position with the guitar on the left leg, my wrist would be even straighter, but now that I have it on my right leg here, I've got maybe just a slight little bend, but not much. It's pretty straight there. Okay, so that's something to consider. I see a lot of people trying to do this thing, where they're just, that wrist is in a compromised position, and it's just not going to do you any favors. You might see some people do that, maybe like flamenco style, but they've worked that into their technique to be effective. So as you're starting out, unless you're taking that route. Try and keep a straight wrist. Now, one thing to consider there is you can see how close these fingers are together. They're not trying to separate like that, kind of tying into that tension discussion we were just having. And this always gets people the thumb position. You have to extend the thumb beyond the index finger so these fingers can move freely through the string. If this thumb is back here, let me kind of turn a little bit more direct here. I'm blocking my index finger now. I can't move, and that's just going to cause all kinds of awkward movements and tension problems. So extend the thumb a little bit past the index. It doesn't have to be super exaggerated, right? But just get it out of the way, and you'll be able to move these fingers freely. It's okay if my index finger rubs my thumb there, it's touching it, but it's not in the way, and then now my thumb can move freely as well, because if I'm over here, I can't get anywhere with that thumb. So it's restricting my movement. All right, so general hand position, extend the thumb there, right? Just move it beyond the index. Next will be the point of contact. So what that means is where, in particular, we're talking about our index, middle, and ring, where our fingers land on the string in order to be able to move through the strings, all right? So I'll just point it out in this manner. If I am leaning too far forward like this, then I'm going to get hooked underneath the string and want to pull away, okay? And that's what everybody does initially. They'll curl that finger and get underneath the string and then just kind of rip their hand away. If every time you have to play a note, your hand moves away from the guitar, you're gonna have a really hard time playing, okay? So don't move too forward, don't roll the fingers like that past the string to where you're getting stuck underneath and digging under the string. And also, vice versa, don't be so far back that you have no way to create leverage to move through the string, because we are displacing the string as we move through. So ideally, if this is the string right here, this would be, sorry, trying to get, there we go. This would be ideal, right? To kind of have my finger set up to where I've got good curve in the index there, and I can push through and not get caught. This would be rolling too far forward, then I would have to get underneath it and dig. And if I'm too far back, then I really can't get the string at all. I can't move through it to create the noise, the sound, the vibration, right? So I have to set my fingertip on the string accordingly so I can swing through, displace the string, and make it vibrate without doing that too abruptly or not giving myself a chance to do it at all. Okay, so point of contact. And then the last thing I want to discuss, which is something that you're just going to be working on continuously as you progress through fingerstyle, is finger independence. So that's a pretty big concept. And what I mean by that is that when one finger is moving, that you're not trying to incorporate or assist it with other fingers. So one perfect example would be if we're playing the thumb and the index together, or the thumb and any finger for that matter, but I'm just going to do thumb and index. So you want these two movements to be independent, right? And what that means is my thumb is following the path that it would follow if it was playing a note by itself, and my index finger is doing the same thing. It's following the path that it would follow if it were playing a single note, but we're doing that as we play them together. So this is always a pitfall for folks when they start playing thumb and the index, middle, or ring together with it. You'll want to squeeze or pinch or turn to make that happen, and that's something that you want to avoid. This is not an independent motion. I'm getting my wrist and forearm and shoulder in there, all kinds of things happening that we don't want. It's just letting the thumb do what it does and letting the index finger do what it does, and once they play, they're relaxing. So independent movement, it's, like I said, something that I know for myself, I had to think about it for quite a while before it actually settled in. And ultimately what it boiled down to is the thing that I mentioned in the beginning of the video, awareness. I had mentors telling me, you know, independent motion, blah, 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 and I'd go, okay, yeah, whatever. All I'm going to do is play this piece over and over and over, and it'll work out. And I was absolutely wrong. You have to think about the technique and not just playing a series of notes, right? I think that's kind of what we all get hung up on is I want to be able to play the song, so I'm just going to learn those notes. However it comes out, and I'm happy I'm playing that song. That's great, and you want to have fun, but I guarantee you save yourself a lot of heartache if you give even just a little bit of consideration to technique and these 4 fundamental concepts that you will carry with you throughout your entire life of playing guitar. So just a quick review, guys. Managing tension, finding optimal tension, no matter what we happen to be doing in all hands. We can talk about that in all facets of guitar playing. The general hand position, right? Straight wrist and extending the thumb beyond the index finger so they're not clashing. The point of contact, so setting our fingers on the string in a way that we can move through comfortably and get a nice sound, not rolling too far forward or too far back. And then independent movement, and all of these are things that you will be considering with every piece that you play, and you will always want to remind yourself of it. So we'll touch on these concepts in other videos where applicable, you know, if there's something that we need to specifically discuss. But like I said, it's just something that you're going to want to maintain consideration of no matter what you're doing. So write those things down and post it up on a bulletin board so you see it every time you sit down to play. And the more you practice having that awareness, you're just going to sit down and think about it without having to, you know, read it on a board or whatever, and then it's just going to become the way that you play. That's all for now, guys. See you in the next video. Thanks.